Hello, this is Accounting 102. I wanted to go through our Chapter 5 challenge exercises. I put them up on Blackboard. Hopefully you had a chance to take a stab at them to kind of see how you did with them. But this video will walk through the solutions and how we get there. Um, these are meant to challenge you. They are challenge exercises, so they're going to be more difficult than some of the homework. Think more holistically about some of these topics and concepts, and it should be a little bit more difficult than what you'll see on the exam. So let's get into it. So the first one, Joyful Journeys Music School, provides private music lessons for elementary students. Its operating costs are as follows. They have rent on facilities, $2,200 per month. Advertising, $274 per month. Instrument rent, $750 per month. Then we have per student costs. Teaching instruction is $40 per student. Books are $5 per student. Other costs are $3 per student. Joyful Journeys charges $100 per student per month. The instructions for this one is to determine the company's break-even point in one, number of students taught per month, and dollars, so sales dollars. So how do we determine the break-even point? First, we need to figure out what are fixed costs and what are variable costs. So our fixed costs are the $2,200 in rent, the $274 of advertising, and the $750 in instrument rental. Okay, those are all the per month costs, so it doesn't matter how many students we teach or how many classes we teach. We have that cost per month, so those are our fixed costs, so $3,224. Next, we'll look at the variable costs, and that's the per student cost, so the teaching instruction, the books, and the other costs. So $48 per student is our variable cost. We know the sales per student, that $100 that we charge the students each month. So $100 per student minus our $48 per student for our variable costs, we get a contribution margin per student of $52. In order to determine the break-even point in units, students in this case, we'll take our fixed cost divided by our contribution margin. So in this case, our fixed cost at $3,224 divided by 52, we get 62. So 62 students is our break-even point. Okay, and remember, break-even point is where your net income is zero. So that's what we need to have net income of zero. We cover all of our costs. Next is determine break-even point in dollars. So we'll do the shortcut way first. Our break-even in units is the 62 students from the previous slide. Simply take those 62 students times what we charge per student, $100, $6,200. Okay, since we knew the selling price per student, we know the number of students, that just do that multiplication and we get our break-even point in dollars. Or we could have done it this way, where we calculate our contribution margin ratio, 52%. So that's our contribution margin divided by our sales. So $52 per student divided by $100 per student sales is 52%. We take our fixed cost divided by that contribution margin ratio. So the 3,224 divided by 0.52, we get $6,200 in break-even dollars. So that's the sales we need to have, the sales dollars we need to have in order to have zero net income. Now Joyful has some bad news. They just received notice that the rent on their facilities will be increasing by $500 per month, and the instrument rent will also be increasing $20 per month. So the company has to make some decisions on what they want to do. So we're going to determine the company's break-even point and the number of students taught per month based on the new information. And then secondly, we're going to determine the amount to charge per student, assuming that Joyful Journeys does not increase the number of students taught. Okay, so independent things. And then within number 2, if Joyful Journeys does not want to increase their fees, how many additional students would they need to attract? So first we're going to change our assumptions or our information up above. Rent goes up $500, so from $2,200 to $2,700. Instrument rental goes from $750 to $770. Now our new fixed costs, rent, advertising, and instrument rental is $3,740. So all $520 of the increase that we're seeing is in our fixed costs. So our fixed cost goes up $520. Variable costs stay the same. The teaching, instruction, the books, and the other costs, so $48. If we're not changing our price, our contribution margin per student stays the same. And now our break-even point and the number of students taught is our fixed cost divided by our contribution margin, 72 students. Okay. Second part says, determine the amount to charge per student assuming Joyful Journeys does not increase the number of students taught. Okay, so let's look at kind of breaking down what we did for break even. We took our fixed cost divided by contribution margin. We can break that down further and say fixed cost divided by selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. Okay, so that's the formula for contribution margin. We just substituted that in instead of the contribution margin. With doing that, we can plug in what we know. We know that if we don't want to increase the number of students, so our break even was $62 students before. So if we remain at 62 students, that's our break even in units. We know our new fixed costs. We know our new variable cost, which is the same as the old, and we just need to determine the selling price. So the formula will look like this. 62, the break even in units, equals 3,744, which is our fixed cost, divided by contribution margin, which is our selling price, unknown, X, minus our variable cost per unit, $48. Now if we take that equation, break it down, we have 62 times X minus 48, 3,744. If we continue the algebra and solve for X, we get that the price that we need to charge our students is $108.39. So an increase of $8.39. So again, that second question there in under 2, if Joyful Journeys does not want to increase their fees, so they don't want to charge $108.39 to their existing students, they're going to add more students. What do they need to do to break even? We look at our first answer we got, 72 was the break even with the new fixed cost, so we'd have to attract 10 more students. So this is an example of taking what we learned and then applying it to kind of a real business of things that they may incur as they go about running their business. They could have rent go up, some other costs change, and then they have to determine, do we increase cost to offset it, or do we increase the number of sales units, in this case the number of students taught, to offset that increased cost. Now we'll look at the second challenge exercise. So Birchfield Company reports the following operating results for the month of February. Sales of 900,000, units were 15,000. Variable costs, $472,500. Fixed costs, $202,500. Management is considering the following independent courses of action to increase net income. So these are independent, two different things that we're going to look at. One, we're going to increase the selling price by 2.5% with no change in total variable costs or units sold. Okay, so we're just increasing the selling price per unit. Second one, we can reduce our variable costs to 49% of sales. Okay, so we need to compute net income under each alternative and decide which one will produce the highest net income. And then secondly, we're going to look at some longer term solutions to improve net income. One option they have reviewed will increase fixed expenses by $27,500 while reducing variable expenses by $2 per unit. Management feels that with these changes, the price of the product could be reduced by $1 per unit. The decrease in price will then result in an increase in unit sales of 5%. So the lower selling price is going to result in higher units sold. Then we need to compute the net income to be earned under this alternative, and we'll discuss whether we recommend that or not. So the first thing I'm going to start with is create the existing or original net income. So using the information given in the problem, our sales of 900,000, which was 15,000 units. Using that information, we can see that our per unit sales is $60. 472,500 is our variable costs. Again, using the 15,000 units, we get a variable cost of $31.50 per unit. And then we have our contribution margin. Then we get reduce that by our fixed costs, and our net operating income is $225,000. The first alternative is to increase the selling price by 2.5% with no change in total variable costs or units sold. So our new selling price we have to calculate. It's our $60 selling price per unit plus 2.5% times $60. That's our increase. That equals $1.50, so our new selling price is $61.50. Then our formula, sales minus variable costs minus fixed costs, is net operating income. Our new sales, 15,000 units, because remember the units didn't change, times our new selling price, $61.50. 15,000 units again times our $31.50 per unit variable costs. That doesn't change. Our fixed costs don't change because they're fixed. We get our net operating income. So in this case, our new sales is $922,500. Same variable cost total, same fixed cost. Our new net operating income is $247,500. Okay, so we see an increase of $22,500. It increased our sales, and that flowed right through to our operating income. The second option is to reduce variable costs to 49% of sales. So looking at our original net income, we had sales of 900,000. Our variable costs are more than 49% of sales. So if we want to reduce our variable costs to 49% of our sales, we take 49% of that 900,000, we get 441,000. So $31,500 less in variable costs. Again, our equation to get net operating income, sales minus variable costs minus fixed costs. We just take our 900,000 minus our 441,500 new variable costs minus our fixed costs, 256,500. So we increased operating income, and we actually increased it more than alternative one. So alternative 2 here results in our highest net income of the two. Now we'll look at a longer term solution. So one of these options they have is to increase fixed expenses by 27,500 while reducing variable expenses by $2 per unit. Now it doesn't say what they're doing in order to do that, but one kind of common thing that companies do is to increase automation. So they might buy a new piece of equipment, and that would increase our fixed cost because depreciation would be higher. So that would be one reason that fixed costs would go up. Not the only one, but in this example, we're going to assume that. If we automate our production, then we can reduce our direct labor. Direct labor is a variable cost, so we can reduce our variable cost, in this case, $2 per unit. So that's a realistic kind of thing that may drive higher fixed expenses and lower variable expenses. Okay, and again, now with this, they're feeling that they can reduce the price of the product by $1 per unit, and that $1 per unit decrease in sales price will increase sales by 5%. So let's look at what changed. Our fixed expenses increased $27,500. 27,500 plus 202,500, 230,000 is our new fixed expense. Our variable expenses goes from $31.50 per unit. We're reducing that by $2 per unit, so $29.50 per unit is our new variable cost. Selling price reduced by $1, so it goes from $60 per unit to $59 per unit. And our unit sales increased by 5%. So we take our 15,000 units times 1.05, gives us 15,750 units. Now that we have this information, we can create an income statement again. So I'm going to put it up next to our original so we can see the difference. Net sales are the 15,750 units times the new selling price of $59. Variable cost, 15,750 units times our new variable cost of $29.50. So that gives us a contribution margin of $464,625. Okay, fixed costs, $230,000 now. So we subtract that, and we have our new net operating income of $234,625. So with these changes, we do increase our net operating income. It wasn't as much as we did with the alternative 2 earlier, but the question is, should we recommend this? Why or why not? So here's the verbiage that the authors of the book give us. So even though it does not increase net income, it does increase net income, but just not as much as before. It reduces our variable costs. So reducing variable costs, and if that's a sustainable thing to do, it's a better kind of option by having a plan to do that. And then lowering the selling price drives more units. So if we can sustain that, it's probably better to go ahead with this option rather than just arbitrarily picking 49% of sales to try and get as our variable costs without a good plan of actually how to get that. It may not be sustainable, and we didn't structurally change anything where in this option it does. So that's it for the challenge exercises. Again, especially this second one is a little bit more complicated than what you'll see on the exam. So if you can think through kind of what's happening in all this, you're probably going to be in pretty good shape, and you probably have a good concept of these topics and good understanding. So good luck to you. As usual, if you have any questions, please reach out. I don't have set office hours, but I have time to meet, and we can set up some time to meet if you have specific questions or things that you want to go over. Thank you.